Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you are listening to episode number 73, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today, John and I are catching up and doing a little BS session where we're talking all things whitetail and what gets us primed for the upcoming season. So stay tuned. All right. What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a good weekend and were able to get out into the timber and do a little bit of deer work. I had a chance to take advantage of some of the nice weather. It's been crazy hot here recently. We finally got some nice weather. Got a break here this past weekend, and I took full advantage to get out and take care of some food plotting and stuff that I had to get done. But I'm not going to belabor that here on the upfront, because today John and I are going to do a little bit of a catch-up and BS session, and so we'll do an update on all things deer hunting and whitetail once we get Johnny dialed in. So what I did want to do is just to kind of take a moment and do a little bit of housekeeping here. So as I had mentioned in the previous podcast, we are doing an Exodus Trek giveaway. We're going to pull names from a hat, so to speak, once we have 145 people entered into the drawing. And how you get entered into the drawing is you sign up for the Truth from the Stand newsletter, and you can do that at truthfromthestand.com on the About page. So if you do that, we'll get you entered into that drawing, and hopefully here in the next week or so, we'll announce who the winner is and get that bad boy shipped out to you so you can get that hung in the timber to hopefully to your benefit here as fall is quickly approaching. Also, if you wouldn't mind, if you're not already doing so, it'd be awesome if you followed us on Instagram and or Facebook. And if you are already doing so, we very much appreciate you tagging along as I go through my whitetail expeditions and just the random things that I have going on in the whitetail world. So appreciate your follow. If you're not following, go ahead and give us a follow. That would be awesome. And before we go ahead and get Johnny dialed on the line, let's take a quick second to talk about our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. This podcast is brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you've ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. Right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com, use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and get a 20% discount on your Wicked purchase. I put mine to use this past weekend. I don't do a lot of trimming, but I did happen to have a tree in mind, particularly in this one spot that I wanted to get trimmed out, because I think it could be the money spot. So I spent a little time there and gave it a little love with the Wicked Tree Gear. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The new Exodus Trek is a byproduct of all consumer voices that have been excited about what Exodus trail cameras have to offer, but just can't fit a $200 camera in their budget, and that's okay. A budget-friendly camera backed by the industry's leading warranty is now here. The Trek comes in at $145 and has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift series camera. Same great 5-year warranty and unmatched customer service, 0.7-second trigger speed, photo, video, time-lapse, and hybrid modes, all with a single-line, simple backlit LED display. You also get about 20,000 images on one set of lithium batteries. If you'd like to learn more about Exodus trail cameras, check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And if you'd like what you see, save yourself $20 and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout. We're also brought to you by Tecumseh Seed. As I had mentioned, I was doing a little bit of food plotting at my dad's, and the seed that I will be putting in the ground this year is the Wicked Greens. Actually, I just got it in at the house, so I'm pretty excited. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. It's a great food source or a food plot seed for fall and late season. If you would like to learn more about this seed, go ahead and go to Tecumseh.com and use the product selector tool and learn more, and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save some dollars, 20% on any Tecumseh purchase. And we're also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com, promo code TRUTH, save yourself 20%. They also have the brand new line of coolers.
Recording on my end.
Just hit the website. And now, without further ado, let's get my brother from another mother on the line. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And hailing from the state of Iowa, the Hawkeye State, Johnny Utah, what's going on, man?
What's happening, dude?
Dude, living, loving. She's just a woman, as Led Zeppelin says. Just trying to grind through, man. Dude, we had some nice, cool weather this past weekend, and it's just got me jonesing hard for deer season, like no one's business. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how you're getting 90-degree temps, and then all of a sudden it drops to like 82? You're like, what? The rut's coming? What?
Oh, full on, man. Like 100%. We were back. My in-laws had their 45th wedding anniversary this weekend, so we went back to visit the family. My wife's sister's in town from LA, and we went back for the party and stuff like that. Took the dog, so he got his first trip to the country, which was super cool, And it was the Pennsylvania summer nights that you kind of like look forward to, where it's like, the days were like 85, but like it dipped down into like the low 60s at night. And when you would get up in the morning, it would be nice and kind of crisp, you know what I mean? To where you could sit outside and have a cup of coffee. And I took the dog a walk every morning, like hiked the mountain and just kind of took him in the woods and went for a nice like 45-minute hike. And just like, you can start to see the woods are coming alive a little bit. Like, I've hunted this area particularly, in the past. And so it's like I know where the deer all kind of move. And I saw some deer and tried to keep the dog from chasing deer because he's a lab. And of course, if he sees anything, he wants to run after it. So tried to do that, but man, yeah, I don't know about you, what the weather was happening or what was going out there for the weather, but around here it was just a nice change of pace, and it definitely got the old blood pumping.
Yeah, well, I was down in Orlando for that ICAST show for about 6 days, and then I was home for 3 days. Then I was out in Montana. So Orlando, I have no idea what the temperature was. I was never outside.
Hot.
Inside a convention center or a hotel. But Montana, chill. I mean, 75, 80, 85 during the day, but the evenings got real cold, which is always welcome. And any time of the summer you can get away from the heat.
Yeah, man. I always look forward to. I mean, of course, fall is my favorite time of year, right? Because deer season comes in. But there's just something about this time of year where you get to go out and do some glassing. Temperatures drop a little bit, And the thing is, too, is like when you're going out to glass, I knew the temperature was getting ready to drop, right? So whenever I was driving home, I told my wife, I was like, hey, while you're driving, just, back to your parents, because she left a couple hours before me, and because I had to finish up some work here at the house and stuff like that. And it's like a 3-hour drive. And so I was like, hey, when you're going back, I was like, the temperature's getting ready to drop. I was like, so just watch the fields for me for deer. I was like, I bet there's going to be deer out tonight with the temp drop, like more so than usual. And sure enough, man, she's only gone for about an hour. And she's like, I don't know if you've left yet. She's like, and she told me like whatever the mile marker was on the turnpike. And she's like, there is a hammer buck just hanging out like in this field that's near the turnpike. And I was like, temp drop equals deer movement. Oh my God, is it October yet?
It's funny, dude.
Yeah, so
we're all kind of wired a little,
Yeah.
We're all waiting for that first cold front. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. It always takes us to a happy place,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I told her. I was like, man, temp drop this weekend, should be good deer movement. Now the crappy thing was while we were back, I didn't get out to glass at all, since it was more of a family trip of a anniversary party variety. So it wasn't like I was going back specifically to do things that I wanted to do. It was a great party, don't get me wrong, but I definitely would have liked to have done some glassing, man. But I wanted to ask you, so I know we were chatting right before we jumped on here, and I had mentioned something about truck borrowing, spouses borrowing trucks. So question for you.
Okay.
Do you permit it? Do I permit
truck borrowing?
Yeah, so if your wife asks to borrow the truck or needs to borrow the truck,
okay.
Is it something you do willingly? Is it begrudgingly? Is it like, does it come with stipulations? Are there rules and regulations that need to be followed?
So I think number one thing you have to consider, who is borrowing, said vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
What is their past driving experience?
Yes.
Wife is kind of tough because you almost have to let them do it, even though you might suspect something bad's going to happen, just to keep the peace. Um, it's funny that you mentioned this. It wasn't that long ago. Somebody had mentioned to me something about, loaning a vehicle out. And one time in my life, I loaned a vehicle out. I loaned said vehicle with a half tank of gas. They brought it back like dead ass empty, like sputtering for me to make it 1 mile to the gas station.
Right.
And I'm like, total foul. Like, that's a bylaw. When you borrow a vehicle, you fill that tank back up with gas and maybe even take it to the car wash.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just me. So, but I have a feeling that you loaned your vehicle out to your wife.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, so look at you. You can tell you were an investigator in your past life. Yeah, so we were headed back, right? And so we got this new dog, and he's awesome. He's learning the ways of the house really well. He's being able to be left alone now, and I don't have to like crate him or anything like that. And he has a new crate, a new cage, because I sent you pictures of the previous cage that he ate. He ate the wire cage that's built for his size, like,
Yeah.
and I was, it's ridiculous. Like, he's destroyed 2 of them. I had to send 2 of them back to Amazon, and I was like, hey, like, my dog ate your cage. I'd like to get my money back because this thing, it doesn't work. And so they gave me my money back, and I ended up getting a new cage. And I was really concerned he was going to hurt himself because, like, he was literally chewing off the metal, and then it was becoming sharp, and he was trying to wedge himself between, like, after he would get the wires pulled apart and stuff. So I went and got like the Fort Knox like dog jail, like has bars where it's like if he eats this thing, like I'm not even going to be mad because I'm going to be impressed, and I'm going to enter him into some type of competition where he eats odd metal objects for like monetary gain or something, because it'd be a feat of doggy power if he is able to devour this thing. So with that being said, it's sizable, right? I mean, it collapses in on itself, and it's got a few bolts and stuff like that. You can put it together and take it apart in under 5 minutes, right? So we got him that, and so my wife left with my daughter and her sister, took her car back. Her sister's in from California, so they were staying an extra couple of days back with her parents, So I left on Sunday. They're coming back, on Tuesday, right? So tomorrow, as we're recording this on Monday, and so the plan was like, okay, you drive back with the girls and take all the suitcases and stuff like that, and that's fine. And then I'll basically just pack like a quick bag or whatever, and then I'll bring the dog with me in the truck along with his cage, because my brother-in-law was also bringing his dog, and we weren't sure how they were going to get along, so we needed to make sure at night when they were sleeping there was a way to keep them separated if we needed to. So pack everything up, go back, everything's cool. And she was like, well, then I'll drive back your truck. After you leave, you can bring my car back, and use it on Monday and Tuesday, and I'll bring your truck back with the girls, the dog, and the cage. I was like, okay, not super cool with it because I don't like to lend my truck out. Also, my wife has wrecked every vehicle she's ever driven. So there's also that part of it, driving record as part of it. And then my other stipulation was like, he's going to be with this other dog, like for the weekend, and they're playing, and see it's a King Corso. So he's like super slobbery. So my dog basically was like a slobbery mess the entire time, because they just like mauled each other the entire weekend. And so I was like, just make sure you give him a bath before you put him in my truck, because I don't want, as hunting season's coming up, as we all know, for scent control, right? I was like, I don't want my truck smelling like stinky dog ass for like the next 3 months, and I spend like however much time trying to get it out of the upholstery of the truck before hunting season comes in. So she's calling. Right. So she's, she called me right before you and I started talking, and she's, talking about, bringing the dog back and what time they're going to leave tomorrow and all this stuff. And I was like, well, did you give him a bath yet? And she's like, no. And I was like, dude needs a bath before he gets in my truck. And she was like, well, I'll give him a bath tomorrow morning before I leave. And I was like, dude needs to be bathed and dried before he gets in my truck. I was like, because I do not want wet dog smell in my truck. So am I being finicky, or do you think I have a case here?
You have a case.
Okay.
No doubt. You have a case. I don't know if it's a winnable case there, counselor.
I'm married, but, so that's a losing case regardless. So that goes without saying.
It's something I learned years ago in the court of law. It's not always what happened; it's what you can prove. And if you have a debatable case, and you can win a case, but lose at the same time. And I have a feeling that this may be a losing case.
So this is what
in the end.
Yes, no, and I agree with you. I think that this is a losing case, but I think what is going to happen is I think is she's going to tell me that she gave the dog a bath and just bring the dog home anyway and without a bath and just tell me that she did. I think that's what's going to happen. And then my truck's going to smell like slobbery dog for like the next 2 months.
Yeah, it's very possible. Now, you might be able to establish, I think maybe a different approach might be is after you get your truck back and it smells like a dirty butt, then you might be able to say, hey, come here, smell inside my truck.
Smell
this is what I was referring to,
Right.
And just be like, hey, it's all good. I'll clean it. Yeah, just, next time, let's not make a big deal out of this.
Right. This is what I'm trying to avoid here is this smell. So, well, yeah. I mean, I guess if push comes to shove, I can crank the old Ozonics unit up and throw it in the back seat. And
yeah, there you go. That's actually a really good idea. Hey,
yeah,
actually, might not be a bad thing. Just let her do it so you can do a little test.
Yeah,
it could be a little blog.
That's actually that's not a bad idea. See if it gets the dog funk out of my.
So you take limes and turn them into, or lemons and turn them into lemonade.
Right, or limes and turn them into limonade. Right.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Nice.
Take those limes, cut them up, and put them in a Corona.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds like a good idea. I could use one of those about now. So anyway, I'm losing that bet. That's happening. I'm gonna have a stinky truck. I'll put an ozone unit and clean it up, and we'll be good to go. But just before we got into my truck dilemma, we were talking about getting pumped up for the season, and it's kind of funny. So we had the weekend, right? That was nice, cool weather that kind of got me jazzed and ready to go. And then today I go to pick up the mail, and lo and behold, the Cabela's archery catalog is in the mail. And
dude, that's always like a turning point, in the year.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, man, like there's two things for me, and I'll just say what they are. Like for me, I know that it's about to be hunting season, and it's time for me to go ahead and start getting, like, I can allow myself to start to daydream a little more and start to geek out a little bit more. I mean, we do it all year round, but whenever it's like January and I'm already like freaking out about the season coming up, it's like you got to kind of like pull the reins back, or else you're gonna have a long couple months. So for me, it's like I allow myself to kind of like unravel when the Cabela's archery catalog shows up and the Steelers go to training camp. And both things happened this week. So now I am full go for archery season, and I can basically be an obnoxious freak around the house talking about deer. So I'm just curious for you, man, what is that thing or those things that you see, smell, hear, feel that say like, holy shit, it's almost deer season?
Let's see. Usually the start of the third quarter hunting shows. When you start seeing a lot of the new programming, then that tells you, okay, that's Q3, Q4 for the networks. Mm-hmm. That's one of the first indicators. So that's, July 15th, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. That's always a big one. I will agree with your Cabela's archery catalog. That's kind of another one of those deals where it's getting closer. But also the first time you see like a velvet buck, I mean, forget glassing for velvet deer.
Right.
Like when you just kind of see one on the side of the road, or you see one standing out in the field somewhere driving home, and you're like, oh boy. Mm-hmm. Oh boy,
Yeah. And
it's the first one that's like almost fully developed. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, yep, he's about done growing.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
That's what does it for me.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And so I've got a chance to go out and do a little glass, and we'll talk a little bit about our updates as far as like trail camera checking and stuff like that here in a few. But I had an experience this weekend with that, which kind of got me all geeked up. But I'm curious too, man. It's like there's always, so this time of year, once I kind of turn the page and turn the corner, I always have like, I guess it's really two main rituals that are really kind of start right now in preparation for the season. And that's like one of the other things. It's like I have things that I start doing this time of year. Like, Steelers go to camp, Cabela's catalog comes out. I've gotten a couple cool summer nights, and that kind of triggers me to, one, I start doing a lot more shooting from an elevated platform. So when I go to the range, it's like I usually shoot from an elevated platform throughout the year, but it's sporadic because I'll spend time on a 3D course, walking a 3D course and stuff like that. But as it gets close to the season, about, the past week or so, I start, I full on redneck it up. I live in a town outside of, a suburb of Philadelphia. So I'm the only guy probably within like 50 square miles that has a tree stand in his backyard. And the neighbors can fully see me over my privacy fence and my tree stand. And I do some elevated platform shooting at my 3D target and try to start getting dialed in at different distances, getting used to being in a stand again. So that's one of the things I do. And then the other ritual for me is the annual, I should start throwing like a party for it or whatever, start like chronicling it. It's the annual backpack dump and repositioning all the gear in the backpack with the attempt of removing things that I don't need. However, everything that I dump out makes it back into the pack every year. Those are my two rituals.
Yeah.
How about you, man? Do you have anything that you like to that you do every year that's kind of like your your preparation, your long-term preparation and build?
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I've mentioned it before in a couple. I think I mentioned either a podcast or an episode or something there a while, but the night before the season starts, like that's always been a ritual for me. I don't care how prepared I am. The night before the season starts or the night before I'm going to go out the first time, that's my Christmas Eve, man.
Mm.
Like I dump out the pack and I look at all my gear and I know that there's nothing else I need in that pack, and I know that there's nothing I'm going to get rid of, but I act like I'm kind of methodically thinking about, do I need two of these or do I need one of these?
Right.
And yeah, packing the backpack. That is, I love doing it, and I love to spread everything out on the floor like it's Christmas morning, and I'm looking at all my stuff, and I'm, it's almost like I'm looking at it for the first time. I'm like,
yeah, I hear that. There's also the camo wash right before the season too. The camo wash, descenting, and then packing away. I haven't done that yet because that for me that's like I usually try to do that like 2 weeks out because once the camo gets washed and goes in the scent-free tote, because I take care of it as soon as the season's over. I wash it, put it in the scent-free tote, and it stays till summer until I get it out to get ready. And one would think that it would be clean and fine and scent-free because it did nothing but sit in a scent-free tote after it got washed this past winter. But for whatever reason, it's like I have to I don't trust it. You know what I mean? Like there's something in the back of my mind. And I don't know if it's just like this, neuroses that I have, and I'm like, I got to pull it back out. It's like the guy. So there's a guy that I work with who actually every week takes all of his clothes out of his dresser, unfolds them, washes all of them, folds them all again, and puts them all back in his closet and his dresser. It's almost like that, where it's like I take something that's completely done and I undo it and then I redo it again. But it's just one of those things where it's like once that happens, it's like then it's kind of game on. Like it's like I'm set then. I'm ready for the season. But
yeah,
I don't go quite as far as my buddy that rewashes all of his clean clothes every week. I asked him why. He said because I think they get dusty while they sit in my dresser. That was his reason. So he might be a little OCD, just a little.
He might need a hobby.
Yeah, he's an interesting bird. I would say he could use a hobby. But so man, I want to talk a little bit about some things we've had going on over the past few weeks since we've had a chance to catch up last. And I want to start with you first. So I know you went to TAC, and I'm always extremely jealous every year when you get to go to TAC. Even though, I went to TAC this year in Seven Springs, and it was awesome. Had a great time. Bunch of cool dudes. Got to shoot with a bunch of buddies. The course was really challenging, really cool. I know we covered that in the previous podcast. But I don't know, man. Like, I see your pictures and being in Montana, and there just seems like there's something a little bit extra special, aside from the amazing scenery, about shooting the TAC in Montana. Just like it feels like the course would be more challenging, especially if you like to Western hunt, because you're getting a little bit of that elevation, and so you're kind of gauging where you're at in terms of like your readiness as far as like being able to hit the mountain and put the miles on the boots if you need to and stuff like that. So how was TAC this year, man?
Before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Hardcore deer hunters need hardcore tools.
Do yourself a favor and check out Wicked Tree Gear, the toughest handsaws and pull saws on earth. You buy it once, you buy it for life, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Right now, if you use the promo code TRUTH, you'll save 20% on your next purchase with free ground shipping. So head over to wickedtreegear.com and get a saw that's tough enough to work as hard as you hunt.
It was good. Like I've mentioned before, that's the only one that I've ever been to. But same deal. I just kept seeing everybody's pictures from there. And then after going out there the first year, I kind of made a commitment to myself. I said, if I only go to one of these things a year, this is the one I'm going to. But, being out there in, Sitka's backyard, I've got a lot of friends over there, and that's always super fun. There's so many companies that are based out of Bozeman to begin with. Mystery Ranch and Tight Spot. I think they're in Belgrade, actually, which is right outside. But you've got Stone Glacier. I've got some buddies over there, and 2% for Conservation. Operates out of Bozeman, and so it's just so freaking cool, man, to bump into a bunch of people that live out west that you typically I don't get to see or talk to them as much as I'd like. And so that's what makes it so cool. But the mountains are they're so awesome. I mentioned to somebody the other day, I'm like, if you lived out there, how could you ever have a bad day? Like, how some people do, like count to 10 or whatever. All you got to do is just look out your window. You're like, oh, mountains. Yep. Okay, I'm good. It's cool, man. The courses were super fun this year. The groups that I shot with, the first day I shot with a bunch of Canadians, Steve Eklund and a bunch of his crew from Canada. And
the shirt that you guys...
It was kind of funny because just like everything, and but they don't say it as much as I pretend that they do.
Right.
It's just when they do say it, it stands out. So everybody's from Canada. I'm the only person, from lower 48. And anytime that I got like a 12 ring or something like that, I'd be like, suck it, Canada. And that always kind of sparked a good little rivalry. But
nice.
There's some great shooters in that group, man, especially Steve Eklund himself. He's a phenomenal shooter. Eric Shippey, he was shooting with us. He's a phenomenal shooter, and all these other guys. And I'm horrible with names, but right. That was a ton of fun. And the next day, we did kind of a big group shoot, and it was all Jake, Sam Salt. Let's see, I'm trying to think. A bunch of the guys from the Prime office we're shooting in the group. David Wise, two-time gold medal Olympian freestyle skier. He was in the group. He's a phenomenal shot as well. I mentioned Sam Soul, his dad, Jerry. He came into town, and I think Jerry is 65.
Nice.
I want to say 65. And Jerry, if he's listening and he's younger than that, I'm sorry. He looks like he's 45, but right. And the way he was getting around the mountains, it's like he was 40. So, and I'm 40. So, right. That tells you anything. But, anyways, he's a phenomenal shooter as well. And it was so cool just to see Sam and Jerry together and their interaction and stuff, father and son and whatnot. That was real neat to see how supportive Jerry is of what Sam's doing, and likewise, Sam was always pulling Jerry's arrows and giving him tips and stuff like that. So he shot really, really well. So it's just so much fun. Then the last day we just did kind of a snobby Prime shoot. It was myself and three other guys from the Prime office, and we just kind of all went and shot together and had a blast. Nice. Corey Jacobson, first time I'd ever met him and got to talk to him and hang out with him, super awesome guy. Just laid back, man. I kept telling him he reminded me of Sam Elliott, and everybody's like, what? I don't see it. And I'm like, how do you not see it? I was like, dude, that's Wade Garrett right there in the flesh. But anyways, super awesome guy. Tremendous amount of respect for him. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone out there listening that isn't, then I'd imagine most people are, unless you just aren't interested in elk hunting, possibly, that you might not know who Corey is. But dude runs the Elk 101 stuff, which is just a wealth of elk hunting knowledge. I think he's actually doing an all elk podcast now with Randy Newberg, which I've listened to a handful of episodes of that were really good. And Corey is like a championship elk caller, like has won many competitions. I think his dad actually owned like one of the first ever like elk call companies, like making elk calls. And he's closely tied in with the guys from Primos because they did the whole the linguist last year for Sitka that was, you know, talking about the evolution of elk calling and elk hunting and stuff like that, which was really good. But I mean, everything I've seen that guy do has been really cool. He seems like a nice guy. I'm glad to hear from you that he is, because there's nothing worse, man. And I know you and I have talked about this before, where it's like you meet guys that like you were looking forward to meeting, whether it was musicians or guys in the outdoor industry or whatever, and you kind of see them and you're like, oh, this person must be awesome. And then you meet him and you're like, man, that dude's a dick. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's so disappointing. You know, you get somebody built up in your head as to what they're going to be, and yeah, super class act guy, very respectful, you know, great listener in conversation and stuff like that. So yeah, he did not disappoint at all. Yeah. He was what I'd kind of built him up to be in my head, you know.
Yeah, and kills hammers. His son killed a great bull last year, and that was an awesome story. It was part of the linguist. Like, I don't want to blow it for anybody, but it probably just did if you didn't see it. But it's been out for a year, so if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I mean, his son, you know, is passing that on to his son, and they're hunting together, and you know, his son's hunting with a bow, and it's like he's kind of taking after his old man, and I'm just glad to hear that he's an all around good dude, because everything that I've seen from him has been super cool, and it's nice to hear that the imagination or the image meets matches the man. So that's always nice to hear. But you mentioned something about, you know, Sam and his dad Jerry, you know, kind of palling around, and you know, Sam trying to, you know, giving him a few pointers and pulling his arrows and stuff like that. It just kind of made me think, man, because I spent this past weekend with my pops. We were, you know, even though we had the, you know, anniversary for my wife's parents, their anniversary party. My dad came up from North Carolina because we had a little bit of work to do at the property. We had killed off of an area that we were gonna, you know, turn into a food plot, and he had brought the UTV up from North Carolina so we could disc it up and stuff. So I went and met him there on Saturday morning and just kind of spent the day with him getting stuff ready. And it's kind of funny because I mean, this, you know, it's almost like it turns into, and this isn't meant to sound bad or mean or anything like that, but you get to a point to where you kind of parent your parents to a degree, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's,
well, yeah, I mean, I see what, you know.
Yeah, well, just because, I mean, if, like for me and my dad, it's like, you know, that man's the man who taught me how to hunt ethically, and, you know, why I like the outdoors and the things that I like as much as I do is a lot to do to him. You know, and then at the same time, it's like I'm probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, I'm way more into hunting than he ever probably had an opportunity to be whenever he was younger, because, you know, it was a different time, and, you know, and you know, he probably didn't have things as easy as I did in terms of, you know, he had a young family and stuff like that. And so, you know, his time was spent, you know, having to work, you know, 2 jobs or whatever to make ends meet and stuff like that. So, you know, his time afield probably isn't as much as I enjoy, or didn't enjoy, you know, the free time to think about it even as much as I do. And so in that regard, it's like there's a lot that I know that, you know, he's taught me, and I've just kind of taken it and run with it. So now it's like I'm talking to him, you know, we're walking around the property after we got things kind of tilled up, and I'm kind of helping him figure out how we should be tilling it. And I went and picked up all the lime and fertilizer because I did the soil sample and I knew what we needed and stuff like that. And we started walking around the property then and checked some cameras and that stuff. And I started pointing out to him, you know, what trees he should be thinking about getting into this year. You know what I mean? So we started doing that, and, you know, and I would say, you know, I think this tree would be a good tree right here for this spot or whatever. And he would ask me why, and I would kind of give him an explanation why, how I think the deer are going to move based on the, you know, the camera information I've seen. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, man, it feels real good to like have your, you know, it doesn't matter how old you get, man. It feels real good for your dad just to kind of sit there and listen to you and be like, you know what, you're right. That's a good idea. It doesn't matter how old you get. It always feels good to hear the old man say, you know, you did a good job. But so I think that just made me think of that when you were talking about Sam and his dad kind of, you know, shooting together and stuff like that, that there's those, you reach a point in your life where you're not, always father and son, but you're just two men enjoying each other's company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, you know, you could tell obviously Sam has learned a lot of new tricks of the trade, and with some of the modern technology and advancements, you know, in archery equipment and stuff. And it was cool to see him pass that stuff down. And his dad's like, okay, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't question him, like took his word for it. And then, you know, the next target, you know, Jerry, he 12 ringed a target that none of us 12 ringed. You know, he was the only person to 12 ring one, and it was a poke, man. I know it was somewhere in the 70s, if not the low 80s.
Wow.
And we were all like, whoa, all right.
Nice.
Jerry can shoot.
Nice.
You know, so it was neat.
The old man showing out. I love it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Nice. But speaking of food plot work, we did manage to get everything tilled up. I'm pretty excited about this little spot. You know, I know you and I were talking about, you know, I was going back and forth with what I was going to plan in it and stuff like that. And so I think I finally settled on, I'm going to be using some Wicked Greens made by Tecumani. And I know that this is a product that is just come out or is just now available on the Tecumani site. So
Yep.
I don't have all the details yet because I'll be getting it here soon. But I wanted to see if you wouldn't mind, just because I know that you and I were talking about this, like, oh man, I don't know, like probably even around ATA, we were talking about this, just
For
like,
sure.
like the development of it and stuff like that. And, you know, you were just kind of talking about how cool it was to, you know, be part of, you know, bringing a seed product to life and a blend to life. So I wanted to give you a minute to kind of just, you know, tell folks what it's all about, what it includes, what time of year it's going to be good for, and all that kind of stuff, because I'm always looking for fall and winter stuff, especially on this property. And that was kind of why I was waiting for the Wicked Green stuff to come out, because I knew from talking to you, I knew what was going to be included in, and it was going to kind of fit my bill. So if you wouldn't mind, just indulge us.
Yeah. Yeah. So Wicked Greens obviously is a play off of Wicked Tree Gear. And, you know, after being with Tecumani Holdings for the past 2.5 years, you know, obviously I became familiar with their seed lineup, and I noticed a trend that there was stuff that was made for the Midwest and for the North and Northeast and for the South, but there wasn't anything that was made specifically for the Midwest seed. And stuff like that, but there wasn't like a dedicated blend to the Midwest. So I started, you know, doing my best politicking, you know, to try to get a Midwest blend. And I said, hey, why don't we just kind of play off of the Wicked Tree Gear, have a little synergy between the brands, and let's do Wicked Greens. And so I worked with our biologist, Mark Newell, super intelligent guy, and said, look, this is what I'm thinking. You know, these are the seeds that I would like to see in this blend. I don't know if they'll all work or not together, because sometimes putting together seed blends, it's tricky on the seed size and getting the percentages, because let's say turnips, super small seed, but has a huge yield and tonnage as far as a big leafy plant above the ground as well, you know?
Yeah.
So making sure that you get your percentages right, nothing chokes each other out. And what we came up with is wintergreens, brassicas, and clover. And the way the split works is you've got oats, winter wheat, rape, two different blends of rape, and you've got a radish in there as well. So you've got 3 different brassicas, and then we have a white clover as well. So that's the blend. It's we sell it in it's almost 5 pounds. It's a 4.7 pound jug. It'll do 1/4 of an acre, 11,000 square feet, and now's the time to plant. Basically, in the Midwest, you've got, you know, now another, say, 30-day window to get it in, and it's extreme late season attraction. That's what we're going for. So we say that it's the perfect small food plot blend for colder climates, high sugar forage variety with grains to attract bucks all season. Maximum tonnage Braskas provide lots of fuel that the deer love. Braskas providing high protein in the early season and high sugar later for energy. High protein clover helps to provide critical nutrition during the late season. So, and like all the Tecomate seed blends, the majority of Tecomate seed blends, it is yellow jacket coating, which is just really good for improving germination amongst all the seeds. So that just hit the market, I'm going to say 5-6 days ago from the time that we're recording this.
Yeah.
And it's available at store.tecomate.com. Wicked Greens. It's been literally flying out of our distribution center. It's been super cool to see people buy it in such large numbers, which tells us that it's something that our consumers and our customers, it's something that they needed, definitely. And, you know, as you and I have talked about before, Tecomate gets, it's unfortunate, Tecomate seed gets kind of grouped into a southern-only seed. And some of that is because of the Bucks of Tecomate TV show,
Right.
You know, being based out of Texas and stuff like that. But as you and I've said before, if it'll grow in Texas dirt, just imagine what it'll do in fertile soil in the Midwest and Northeast and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
guys and girls, check it out. Wicked Greens.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to putting it in, man. The one thing that I was super, because I was looking at a couple of different kinds. You and I were talking, you know, we were talking at ATA whenever I was looking at the brochure of like the entire lineup and stuff like that, and then I'd kind of narrowed it down, you know, and to what I thought I wanted, and we kind of kept talking about. And the thing that I got, I think, most interested in and excited about was, you know, this time of year planning, it can be tough. Right, because you're kind of trying to play the weather. You're always playing the weather game, but when you plant in spring, you know you're always going to get spring showers, so you get a start, and then it just, do you get a good enough start to last you through the year or last you through the summer when you hit those dry spells, right? And this time of year, it's, you know, it can be a little tricky, and it's the one thing that I really liked about the blend was the inclusion of oats, because those are, I don't know, like if you grew up in the country, like grew up, you know, in the country and farm country and grew up on some farms. If you're hauling oats somewhere and you happen to dump oats out in the back of your bed,
Did you just say hauling oats?
I did just say hauling oats. I'm glad you picked up on that.
As soon as you said it, I was like, he just said hauling oats. Okay, my bad. Go ahead.
Damn right, yep. I did. But if you're hauling oats, if you get any type of moisture and you've dropped any of the grain out of the bag into the bed of your pickup truck, it will literally sprout in the bed of your pickup truck. Yep. So that is the one thing, like whenever I was kind of looking for something for this time of year to plant for, you know, fall and late season, you know, I knew I definitely wanted to have something that had oats in it, just for that reason alone. Also, it provides a nice cover crop if you're struggling to get enough rain, if your clover pops up or whatever, it's like the oats will kind of provide a little bit of cover for the clover, so where it doesn't get burned out. Which is a nice added benefit. And the oats, of course, are good, you know, super late into the season, which, you know, deer will continue to hammer. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm planting probably just around an acre. I have burned off and tilled up, so looking forward to getting it into the ground and seeing what shakes, man. Pretty excited about it. So
yeah, it's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna be planting a bunch this weekend. So yeah, it's been one of those things, man. We've been talking about it, and finally the seed is in my hand and get to put it in the ground. And I really think it's something that my food plotting and it might be a secret weapon. I've always said I kind of hate sometimes when people are always looking for that secret weapon. What's going to be here? There's a seed they're growing in England, and if we plant it here, we'll be able to get all the deer on our property, and they'll leave all of our neighbors. You know, I don't know if that exists, but this is truly a blend that I think is going to be a huge benefit to my late season hunting this year.
Yeah, and my thinking was, you know, and you and I had talked about this. I think we might have touched on it briefly on a podcast, but I know we've talked about it, you know, privately. But this property is not huge. It's right around 60 acres, and there's, a couple places where you could put a food plot, and I chose to place it where I did, or where I am, because it's going to keep the deer kind of moving and using the same kind of travel patterns that they've been kind of accustomed to on this property. So I didn't want to kind of disrupt them in that regard, because I have really good travel patterns right now to where it's like I'm catching deer on multiple cameras across the property in daylight and stuff like that. So I know that they have to move. But the other thing was that, with it being a small property, I really was hesitant to do anything that was going to be spring and summer focused, because I didn't want to turn it into a doe factory where it's just like my property got populated with, just kind of polluted with does. If there were any bucks that were going to bed nearby, they would get pushed out by the doe families that would have to bed, at different levels if there were too many of them, using up the better cover and stuff like that. And so I didn't want to run into something like that. And there's not really any food. Like, so spring and summer, there's always a glut of food around, especially even in the timber. And so I knew if I had something during the winter or fall and winter, when everyone else pretty much pulls everything off and like the natural browse and stuff starts to go away, that would be dynamite, because I'd pretty much be the only game in town at that point. So, I'm really looking forward to getting that in and seeing how it helps my my late season hunting on this property. So, and it'll be my first year on this property too. So, hunting it specifically. So pretty pumped about that. But I want to go back to shooting real quick, because I know before you were getting ready to go to Montana, we had started talking about you making a switch to a single pin sight. I know you and I had talked about, we both had used multi-pin sights for the longest time. I believe, for me, it's I've only ever used a multi-pin sight until this year. And I want to say that was true for you as well, but I don't 100% remember. But I wanted to see how your transformation was going, man, moving to a single pin, and how that was coming along.
Pretty good. One of my biggest fears was, it seems like with a lot of times when you switch from a multi-pin to a single pin, you get to a target and you forget to dial and make your change, which could have been really easy to do. You're shooting with your buddies and everybody's laughing, cutting up and joking and whatnot. And I saw a couple of guys do it, on the course, where the last target was 68 and then the next target is 98 or 92. And they come to full draw and send it. And they're like, oh, what the heck just... And then they look at their target, their sight, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to change it." So
that thing.
I didn't make any of those mistakes, but it was kind of one of those things I was afraid I was going to. So it was kind of always on my mind every target. But I like it, man. It really cleans up the sight housing. You're focused on one pin, not a multiple pins. No more of that. Okay, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. None of that counting. You just dial and rip. So,
yep.
The inherent issues that I had mentioned on the last podcast that we talked about, it was I still have some reservations as far as, deer comes in and he's at 30 yards and then he trots off all of a sudden to 40. And it's like, oh crap, I got to range him. I got to change my sight. I mean, I still have those reservations and we'll see how it plays out. But so far, so good. I'm loving the adjustability of the sight. Setup was super easy. So far, so good. Sticking to it.
Nice. So do you think, going back to that, if he trots off to 40 or what have you, are you still possibly considering doing, setting your pin at a yardage and just being able to gap to different yardages? Because mine, and I think I mentioned this in the previous one, but it's like I set mine at 25. And I know I can gap out to like 37 with confidence. And then I know that I can gap anything under that. So, so I'm holding high beyond 25 and holding low, under 25, and just spending a lot of time shooting at odd yardages, shooting at 32 yards, 28 yards, 33 yards, 17 yards. So I can kind of understand, how high am I going to be when I'm under 25 yards, and how, what's my drop going to be if I'm beyond 25 yards at those different yardages. So are you still giving any thought to that? Or are you thinking you're going to kind of, this year at least kind of dial and try to, dial in the pin based on where the deer is coming through at?
Yeah, I'm planning on doing that, and it's going to come from just shooting a little bit more and really start to learn where my bow's at. This is also, I've been making some changes with my poundage and whatnot. I mean, I have my broadheads set as far as weight and my arrows. So I'm not making any arrow changes before the season, so I know what my weight's going to be. I've settled on the draw weight that I'm gonna rock the rest of the season. So now I can start doing those kind of things where I start, like you said, 25 is probably the number that I'll go with, because I think from 20 to 30 I should be just a matter of an inch, 2 inches. But I need to. I want to test it at 30 and 40 and 40 to 30, and see where that drop is, just so I can kind of gauge it a little bit myself. Right. Which is a very, very, I think it's a very smart thing to do. That teaches you to learn your bow more.
Yeah. I definitely feel way more in tune with my bow than I have in the past doing that, because I now understand my trajectory. You know what I mean? I know what my arrow is going to do when I release it. I'm curious, man. What are you pulling? Like, what weight did you settle on as far as your draw weight goes?
70. There's 70-pound limbs, and when we pulled it, it was pulling 72.
Okay.
And there's 70-pound limbs that are buried.
Yeah. And what's your draw length?
28 on this bow.
28 on this bow. So see, my challenge, and we've talked about this in the past. My challenge is I have Tyrannosaurus Rex arms. You know what I mean? So it's like my draw length is 26 and a half. Pulling. Okay. It's set at 70. The limbs were buried, but the string stretched a little bit. I think the last time I looked at it, it was like 68 pounds, I think is what it was, or 67 pounds, something like that. So, it's like I wish I had an extra couple inches of draw length, because that would make gapping so much easier. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's like,
sure.
Yeah. Because when I get out, I set my 25-yard pin, and if I'm shooting out the 35 yards, like, I know I have a pretty good, like, it's a pretty solid, like, 8-inch drop, 8 to 10-inch drop. You know what I mean? From 25 to 35 yards. So that's a gap to kind of play with. Now, I mean, what helps is shooting a 3D target, so I know where to kind of hold the pin, within the anatomy to get the arrow to go where I need it to go. But man, it would be so much nicer if that drop was only about 5 inches. That would be a lot easier to kind of, But I did take your advice, though. I will say this, man. One thing that has helped me out a good bit was I'm now doing a lot more center mass shooting based on the last time we had talked about it. And that has helped me a ton, because I know that we were talking a little bit about that you like to go center mass and try to get that double lung, where it's like I've historically kind of gone for the boiler room shot. And just with this gapping and stuff, it's just been more challenging. So I've definitely taken your advice and gone more of a center mass type of shot. Even, again, took your advice, man. Even not afraid to get a little liver. You know what I mean? So been trying to work on that and not shy away from the liver so much, especially if I'm doing an angle and away shot or whatever. So working on that a little bit, man. But so now I want to get to the meaty stuff, dude. I want to do a hard transition here. And go straight to the trail camera check, and see how see how things are going for you in Iowa on the old image inventory.
Yep.
Anything good?
So I've been sticking to my guns. I said I wasn't going to check trail cameras as much this year as I have in the past. It's a lot easier to do when you're like busy as hell. You know what I mean? And you work 80 hours a week, but the last card pull I did was like June 27th, and I didn't pull all of them. I pulled, I guess I did. Yeah, I take that back. I did pull all of them around that date. And so this weekend coming up, I'm going to make another round, and I'm going to check all of them. So that'll put me at August 4th, call it 6 weeks in between card pulls. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited because I actually did spot a couple of deer from that late June pulling that have one has potential to be a really, really good buck. I don't know exactly how old he is. He didn't have a birth certificate attached to his body. And early season, it's so hard to judge them sometimes. But one deer did get a picture of. He won't score anything at all, but he's an old deer. I do know that. I do know that physically he has an appearance of a very old deer. So anyways,
Nice.
that's what I got look forward to this weekend, man.
Dude, that's almost like when you were talking earlier about dumping your pack out and kind of looking at it all. It's like Christmas morning, Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
the night before opening season. It's the same thing when you're checking trail cameras, trail cameras. Just getting pumped up to, it's just the anticipation of not knowing what's going to be on there. You know what I mean? I did a pool this weekend, and got to tell you, man, like I've been a little bummed out about my card pools like this summer. I'm just not. I haven't seen a lot of nice bucks on camera yet. Now, my neuroses kind of kicked in, and I was getting a little overly concerned about it maybe. And so what I did was I went back and looked at, because I was trying to remember. So this property, I didn't hunt it at all last year, as I had mentioned, and I just kind of watched trail cameras, right? So I was paying attention to it, but I wasn't really, because I knew I wasn't going to hunt it. I was watching what deer were on it, but I didn't really pay attention to what time I was seeing the deer, particularly in terms of dates. I knew about what time of the season I was seeing deer, but not specific dates and stuff like that. So I was getting a little antsy and a little nervous because I wasn't getting any good deer on camera. And so last night when I got home, I pulled out my hard drive and pulled up all the images from last year and started going through each different card pool that I did, at the different, dates and stuff like that, to see like when did I start seeing the best deer come onto the property? Like at what dates was it? Because like I'd mentioned before, there's not a ton of action on this property during the summer, but last year, all the nice deer that I had on camera at any point all showed up between October 1st, beginning of the season, and were around until like Thanksgiving, right? So the entire archery season they were there, and then they disappeared during late season. And then I assumed they would show back up, sometime late summer. And so when I looked at the, data from last year, it seems like the nice deer on that property started showing up right around like mid-August is when they really started showing up. I had one image of a nice deer mid-July, and it was the only one. All the other ones showed up between mid-August and like the mid to end of September. So I'm still probably like 2 to 3 weeks out before I need to worry, I think. If I get to 3 more weeks out, I get to the end of August, and I'm still not getting, some shooters on camera, then I'll start to get worried. But I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that, because, so how they say the old saying is one in hand is worth two in the bush, right? I don't know. I don't even know what the hell that means, but it sounds good. So yeah. I didn't have shit on camera.
One in the hand is worth more than two in the bush.
Right. It depends on what bush.
True. Yeah, it all depends on what hand, what bush,
whose
what
hand,
time of year,
what bush.
Factors.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could foul that up. Anyway, I digress. So I didn't have anything on camera, and I was honestly a little bit bummed. My dad, because my dad drove all the way up, and we got all the food plot work done we needed to get done, but I was really hoping we would see something really good on camera, so he could get excited about it. You know what I mean? And there just wasn't anything on there. There was one decent buck that I had on there that he would be a borderline shooter in Pennsylvania, but for most people, but I'm probably not going to shoot him. It's one of those type of deer. Be great if he got another year, then he'd be a nice deer next year. So we get in his side by side to kind of drive, because he was driving the property, and and we were checking the cameras and stuff. And then there's a road, or an old logging trail, that kind of goes out to this dirt road, because the property's on a dirt road. And he gets onto the dirt road to drive down to the other entrance to the property. And as we're driving down, don't you know, right along the road, like 10, just across the dirt road from our property, a buck jumps up that's bedded 10 feet off the road in the high grass, and shoot her all day. So yeah, I was pretty excited about that. And I stood there and just watched him. Like, you could tell, like, this is the cool thing about this property. Like, it gets literally like hardly any pressure in this area, for Pennsylvania at least. That deer just stood there, and we sat there for probably like 5 minutes and just watched him. And he was only maybe 20 yards from me at that point, just standing, just inside the timber line. So we went and parked the UTV, and my dad needed me to run him down and run an errand with him. So I did that, and we came back and we drove past the same spot. And I just said to him as we were pulling up to it, I was like, man, I was like, that buck likes that bedding spot for some reason right there along the road. I was like, I wonder if he's back there. I wonder if he just like was like, these guys aren't a threat. I'm just going to go back and lay down. Sure as shit, we drove by again, and he was laying in the same spot, jumped up, walked into the timberline, and just stood there and watched us. And I was like,
wow.
I was like, you got to be kidding me. Of course, I didn't have my camera with me. I forgot my camera, which sucks because I would have had time to take plenty of pictures of him. So we park. I dropped my dad off at his truck. We say our goodbyes. We're getting ready to pull out. He's going to drive back to North Carolina. And I'm pulling out, and I'm following him out, and I'm wondering, I'm going to drive real slow. I was like, I wonder if that deer went back and laid down at that same spot again. Sure as shit, 3 times I drove by, and he was in that same bed and hopped up and just walked inside the timberline. And then this time he was like, all right, dude, this is the 3rd time you've like woke me up. I'm going to jump down into the woods a little bit. So, but yeah. So that's what I was saying, 1 in hand is worth 2 in the bush. So I haven't had anything great on camera, but I saw a definitive shooter in person, like right bedded, 10 yards off the property line. And he was right where one of the trails I had been watching, it kind of rolls up across this fence line onto our property toward a stand location that I have kind of mapped out. It's probably like one of the 2 best spots, I think, on the property. So with that, I redeemed myself and felt a little bit better about the card pool. So I don't know. How about you, man? You been seeing any deer glassing and stuff like that?
Actually, it's funny because, you text me and you said, hey, you good in 30 minutes? And I said, yeah. And I had about a 10-minute drive on the gravel from that point. I got about a mile from my house, 3/4 of a mile, and I see Velvet Antler standing in a field, actually at my lease. So I looked at the clock, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got 10 minutes, So I'm like, I can easily stop here for 5 minutes. And I had my Maven spotter in the back seat, and I grabbed it real quick and pulled off to the side of the road and glassed this buck. And I mean, it looked like a 3-year-old, but a solid, 10-point frame and
nice.
Good looking deer. So
nice.
That was, I'll be honest, like I love getting trail camera pictures of them, but nothing replaces actually seeing them on the hoof,
Dude, yeah.
That's just so much cooler.
Yeah, it is. Well, and the other thing was, too, is like this deer also confirmed for me a few things that I had thought, because, again, this property is relatively new still, you know what I mean? And so my suspicions were there was one place in the northwest corner of our property where if I were a buck, it's where I would bed, and there's a place beyond that where I know does are bedding, right? And so the other place I thought that they would most likely bed would be across the road, because there's a ridge across the road on the neighbor's property. And no one's hunting that ridge because it's just nasty steep. You know what I mean? It's pretty sheer. And so that was nice because when he kind of took off, that's the direction that he ran. So it's like it kind of tells me that my assumptions were correct. And then the trail camera data that I have too, and using video mode, it's like I catch them coming from that direction. So I knew that they were bedding back there somewhere. That just kind of confirmed for me what I had thought. Bummer is I can't go track down where the other places he's bedding to try to hunt him, but on that side of the road. But we'll do everything we can to keep him on our side of the road, and try to, of course, have that food plot in the fall and the late season that hopefully sweeten our property just a little bit. And that trail that he would likely run to that stand location I have kind of mapped out is at the corner of it as it ends into this almost like prep program field is a apple tree. And that's the hot spot during the fall, is that apple tree there at the beginning of the season. So I'll have that going for me. Yeah. So, well, cool, man. It's we've been flapping our gums here for about an hour. I think we can probably shut this thing down unless there's anything you feel like we forgot or that we need to add.
No, I think it's a pretty good update so far.
Cool, man. All right, brother. Well, then I think we'll go ahead and shut this thing down. I'll let you get rolling, and we'll catch up again soon. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I want to thank you all for joining us. And if you haven't yet, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes and subscribe to the podcast to make sure that each episode is brought to your mobile device directly to your pocket. Of course, be sure to sign up for the Truth from the Stand newsletter. That will get you entered into the Exodus Trek trail camera giveaway. We are nearing in on the 145 participants in order to shut down the entries. And once we get that number, we'll go ahead and do a drawing and then release the name and reach out to whoever wins to get the contact information from you to get a sweet Trek camera into your hands. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecumani Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, and Trophy Taker Rests. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
Broken letters, rationalize yourself in numbers, but I gotta get